"Open the strait, you crazy, or you'll be living in hell." That was the blistering public threat fired off by President Trump toward Iran. This explosive rhetoric was triggered by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, actively attacking massive, heavily laden commercial oil tankers operating in the region. To enforce a naval blockade, Iranian forces began laying active sea mines and firing missiles directly at these transport vessels. These attacks were highly concentrated for a reason. They targeted the Strait of Hormuz, a vital global shipping lane that narrows to a span of just 19 miles. Geographically, it forms a perfect, inescapable choke point for international trade. Getting these tankers moving again quickly became the top operational priority for the United States government. To force compliance, the White House issued a rigid ultimatum. Tehran had exactly 48 hours to clear the passage and make a deal, or face swift military retaliation. Physical attacks within a 19-mile stretch of water had instantly set a 48-hour countdown clock on a potential global military conflict. The leaders of the Islamic Republic did not blink. They categorically refused to meet the American deadline. Instead, they responded with their own severe warning, stating that any military escalation would turn the Middle East into a hell and a swamp for U.S. soldiers. In military terms, a swamp implies a deliberate, drawn-out insurgency. Iran was promising that if the U.S. decided to strike, American forces would be dragged into an inescapable, exhausting regional quagmire. With both nations digging their heels in, the 48-hour window was rapidly closing, creating a highly volatile atmosphere. Both sides locked themselves into absolute apocalyptic rhetoric, leaving zero room for diplomacy on the surface. But right in the middle of these mutual threats of destruction, President Trump announced that the two sides were actually making great progress. Away from the public spotlight, high-stakes crunch peace talks for a ceasefire deal were actively occurring between American and Iranian officials. This maps out the conflicting timelines. On one side, the public timeline, a rapidly expiring 48-hour countdown to armed conflict. On the other, the private timeline, where diplomats expected a ceasefire agreement soon. The violence functioned as the public extension of these secret negotiations. The explosive public threats, the naval mines, and the blockades were all calculated leverage. Each side applied maximum physical pressure to force the other to concede at the negotiating table. This exact strategy is called brinkmanship. It is the practice of pushing a highly dangerous situation to the absolute edge of disaster in order to force the opposition to back down. The U.S. president utilized this by delivering a dual-pronged message, offering a seemingly optimistic ceasefire on one hand, while simultaneously issuing a catastrophic final warning on the other. That warning was explicit. If Iran refused to accept the terms of the ceasefire, they would face total obliteration. This specific geopolitical doctrine treats the very real threat of mass casualties and regional war strictly as a psychological negotiating tactic. Yet the physical reality on the ground was far from a theoretical negotiation. There were still live naval mines and armed missiles aimed at shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz. That exposes the inherent flaw of brinkmanship. It relies entirely on the assumption that both sides are acting with perfect rationality, have absolute control over their militaries, and that one side will safely flinch before it's too late. Threatening total obliteration might succeed in accelerating a peace deal on a piece of paper. But when opposing militaries are packed into a 19-mile waterway, a single physical miscalculation can accidentally ignite the exact war they are only pretending to wage.